Okay, thank you. No, fine. Jayo Radha Madhova Kunjabi Hari Rava Kunjabi Hari Jai Radha Madhova Kunjabi Hari Gopi Jana Madhava Giribara Hati Gopi Jana Vallabha Giribara Hati Yasudanandana Vraja Janarana Sodanandana Vraja Janaranjana Yamuna Tera Manachade Yamuna Tera Panachare Jayaran Umadhuva Kunyabirati Jayaran Umadhuva Kunyabirati Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivara Dagante Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivara Dagante Yasodanandana Brajajanarana Yasodanandana Brajajanaranjana Yamuna Tera Manachari Yamuna Tera Manachari Jai Huranam Padova Kunyabikagode Jai Huranam Madhava Kunyabikagode Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa His Divine Grace Abhaya Chalananda Bhaktivedanta Goswami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai ISKCON Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Anandakoti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai Namacharya Shridharidas Thakur Ki Jai Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shidwaita Gadadha Shivasari Gaur Bhakta Vrindagajai Shishi Radha Krishna Gopi Gopinath Sayam Kunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai Vrindavanam Ki Jai Mathuradam Ki Jai Jagadha Sami Ki Jai Munamai Ki Jai Shimani Lasa Devi Ki Jai Samaveda Bhakta Vrindi Ki Jai Gaur Premananda Hari Hari Bo. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glory is the assembled devotees. All glory is the assembled devotees. All glory is to Shri Guru and Gauranga. Namaon Vishnupadaya. Krishna Prastaya Bhutale. Shimaji Bhaktivedanta Swami Namani. Namaste Saraswati Devi. Gaurvani Pacharni Nivishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deja Tarni. So we are reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam, 10th canto, 45th chapter, text 13. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Aha Jasman Maha Raja Prajas Yagyaptum Arhase Yayate Shapad Yadobir Nashitavyam Ripasane Ahachasman Maharaja Prajas Chagyaptum Arhasi Yapi Shapad Yadubir Nasitavyang Ripasane Ahajasban Maharaja Rajas Chagyaptum Arhasi Yadyati Shapad Yadubir Nasitavyam Ripasane Ahachasman Maharaja Rajasyapyaptum Arhasi Yapi Shapad Yadubir Nasitavyang Ripasane. It is. Aha. He, Lord Krishna, said, Ja, and Asman, us, Maharaja, O great king, Praja, your subjects, Cha, also, Agyaptum, Arhase, please command, Yayati, by the ancient king Yayati, Shapat, because of the curse, Yadubi, the Yadus, Naasitavyang, should not sit, Nripa, royal, Asane, on the throne. So, translation, the Lord told him, O mighty king, we are your subjects, so please command us. Indeed, because of the curse of Yayati, no Yadu may sit on the royal throne. You can repeat. The Lord told him, O mighty king, we are your subjects, so please command us. Indeed, because of the curse of Yayati, no Yadu may sit on the royal throne. So purport, by the servants of His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Ugrasena might have told the Lord, my dear Lord, it is actually you who should sit on the throne. Anticipating this statement, Lord Krishna told Ugrasena that because of Yayati's ancient curse, princes in the Yadu dynasty could technically not sit on the royal throne. And therefore, Krishna and Balaram were disqualified. Of course, Ugrasena also could be considered part of the Yadu dynasty, but by the order of the Lord, he could sit on the royal throne. In conclusion, these were all pastimes the Supreme Lord enjoyed as he played the part of a human being. So some of the commentaries of the Acharyas. Krishna speaks to Ugrasena, you should be the king and you should give us orders. If you say that Yadus should not sit on the royal throne because of the curse of Yayati, I say that though you are a Yadu, there's no fault if I order you to sit on the throne. And Jiva Goswami says, please command us the Yadus, how can I order persons like you? We are your subjects dependent on you. The significance of the word two of the previous verse is here explained. You have dominion over the kingdom as king of the Yadus, Maharaja. Though you are a Yadu, you are part of the Bhoja dynasty whose members generally become kings, whereas we Vrishnis do not. Thus, you should be the king. And finally, Sanatana Goswami. You should instruct all of us Yadus, Asman, but they are all great personalities. How can I order them? We are your subjects, dependent on you, Praja. O great king, since you are the king of the Yadus, you control the country. Previously, you had the kingdom, and now you protect us particularly. You should take complete control now. A kingdom was trifling for Krishna, and thus he did not want to rule, since he desired to return to Braja. This is described in the Vishnu Purana. And there's some Sanskrit here, which I'm not going to read. All the Yadus agreed with the skillful words. Due to the curse of Yati, I can rule as previously, but not as the king. Though you cannot sit on the throne as a king, you can order us as the king by my great influence. Out of shyness, however, he does not say this directly. Oops. So let's go back to that verse. Again. Sanskrit. Ahachasman Maharaja Prajaschajnaptum Arhasi Yayati Shapad Yadubir Nasitavyang Ripasane. So Omagana Timiranda Shah Gunanjana Shlakya Chakshur Unmiritam Yena Tasmai Shi Gurve Namaha. So actually, Ugrasena is meant to sit on the throne in a de facto way, even though de juris, you understand the difference between de juris and de facto? De juris means technically he's not the king, but for all intents and purposes, he is the king. So, is it what? Yeah, no, de facto. Yeah, he's a de facto king, but de juris, no. That's the point. De facto, he's the king, de facto, but de juris, no. So that's the point. So I was thinking about this in regard to one other thing, de juris and de facto. A little bit different than the story here, but then I'm going to get to the story of Yayati in a second. So I was thinking that sometimes people, this is an anti-Ritvic statement, sometimes people say that there should be no gurus and you should follow us instead. So they are de facto taking, I've seen those people who say that, they actually are de facto taking the position of guru, but not de juris taking the position of guru. In fact, they're actually more autocratic than most gurus that I know of. Anyway, apart from that, let's talk about the story of Yayati's curse. Now, it's not that Yayati did get cursed, but that's not what's being referred to here. Let me tell the whole story, which is quite interesting. So this is in the 9th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. And the 9th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam deals with all these different dynasties. Dynasties means, you know, the family trees and stuff like that. So the story is as follows, that actually it starts in the heavenly planets. So in the heavenly planets, you had the priest, the main priest of the heavenly planets. His name was Brihaspati. And Brihaspati, he wanted something that Shukracharya had that he didn't have. What was that? The knowledge on how to bring people back to life. Mritu Sanjivani, it's called. So, let me put this away. So, this Mritu Sanjivani was possessed by Shukracharya, and he used it quite a bit to bring the demons back to life. So, Brihaspati thought, let me send my son, Kacha, to learn this art, and he should accept Shukracharya as his guru. So he sent Kacha, and Kacha began to serve Shukracharya very, very, very nicely. And of course, there's a number of incidents that occurred when the demons understood Kacha's intention. They killed Kacha in various ways, and Shukracharya brought him back to life each and every time. And eventually, the demons thought, well, we're going to kill him in a way that he's not going to be able to come back to life. So they actually killed him and sort of cremated him, and then fed his body in wine, at least the ashes, in wine to Shukracharya. So there's a story in the Bhagavatam. I'm not making this up. So Shukracharya was drinking wine. After this, he became non-alcoholic. So, a teetotaler. So he was drinking wine, and he drank the ashes from the body of Kacha. And so what happened is that Shukracharya had a daughter. Her name was Devayani, and he was very attached to her. And Devayani sort of liked Kacha, and she was developing like a romantic attachment for Kacha. And so she said to her father, you know, you got to bring him back to life. And her father didn't know that he had swallowed the ashes from Kacha. So he began to chant the mantra, and out of his stomach came a voice. And the voice was, I'm in your stomach, but if I come out, I'll kill you. And so Devayani was thinking, this is a conflict. I basically don't want my father to die, and I want Kacha back. So think of some way. So eventually Kacha says from the stomach, Uvacha, Kacha says, all right, teach me Mritu Sanjivani. I'll come out, you split your stomach open, you'll die, and then I'll use the mantra to bring you back to life. Okay. So in this way, he finally gets the mantra, and this happens. And then at the end of the 100 years or so that he's serving Shukracharya, he gets ready to say goodbye to his Guru Maharaj. And he says goodbye to Devyani, who he considers to be like his sister, because she's the daughter of the Guru. So, obviously you don't want to get romantic with the daughter of the Guru. So she has a different understanding, and she says to him, I'm in love with you. Please marry me. And he says, no, you're the daughter of my Guru. I'm not going to get married to you. And so she gets so angry, she curses him that even though you learn this Mrityu Sanjeevani, it will not work when you use it. Of course, later on he was able to teach it to the demigods, but he wasn't able to use it. And he counter-curses. This is a story of cursing and counter-cursing. There's so many curses in this story. Actually, if you read these stories in the Vedic literature, it seems like half the time people were cursing each other. Isn't it? Oh, my God. So, anyway, no comment on cursing. So basically, he curses her that you will not marry a Brahmin. So that's a problem in the Vedic culture. Why is it a problem? Because a Brahmin is only Brahmin lady. It can only marry, according to what's proper, a Brahmin man. If she marries someone who's not a Brahmin man, like someone from a lower caste, like Kshatriya or Vaishya or Shudra, that's called pratilom. There's two types of mixed marriages. One is called anulom. The other one is pratilom. Anulom is where a lady marries a man of a higher caliber, and pratilom is where a lady marries a man of a lower caliber, and it can turn into a problematic situation, as we'll see here. Okay, so there's the curse. Then they go their ways, and Kacha goes back to his father Brihaspati. So then we have King Vrishaparva, and King Vrishaparva has a daughter named Sarmishta, and she's friends with Devyani. Devyani, remember, is the Brahmin girl, and Sarmishta is the Kshatriya girl. Okay, but they're not going to get married. Don't worry, I'm not talking about a pratiloma marriage between them. This is the old days. So what happens is these girls are playing and they're swimming in the river and everything like that, and traditionally they would leave their clothes by the side of the river. And what happened is by accident, Sarmishta puts on Devyani's clothes. And Devyani, being a very proud Brahmin, gets really angry. But she's not considering that Kshatriya ladies are stronger than Brahmin ladies. Usually the Brahmin ladies are softer. And they still have anger problems, but that's another issue. So she doesn't consider like that. And so there's a fight between the two girls. And eventually, Sarmishta, who is actually stronger, more muscular, she takes the clothes from Devyani and throws her into the well, and she's naked in the well. So she's lying in this deep, dark well. I guess she wasn't submerged too much. And crying out, and then all the girls leave. Somehow they left her in the well. And so this poor Devyani's naked in the well. And this great king, and he's known, actually it's described in the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam that Parikshit Maharaj is being described, and one of the descriptions given to Parikshit Maharaj is that he will be a great king like Yayati. Of course, not all that he had all the characteristics of Yayati, which we'll see later on, which are not, some of the characteristics are not at all desirable. So Yayati, this is a story about Yayati's curse. Several curses in the story. So Yayati comes riding his horse. He's out hunting. He goes to the well to get some water, and lo and behold, he looks at down the well, and he sees this naked girl there. It's pretty unusual. And so he reaches either his hand or some way or other. He takes her out of the well. And in the Vedic culture, it's not like the modern culture. People see people naked all the time. Even newspapers and everything like that. So it's quite unusual. He gives her something to put over herself. And she says, "You got to marry me now." And he says, "No, not a good idea," because he knows that Shukracharya's daughter. So it's not a good idea. You're the daughter, like, Shukracharya is like a guru. Even though it's not his guru, Shukracharya is considered, Brahman is like the guru. Like, Brahman's wife is considered like the mother. So Brahman has special respect in society. He's considered like everyone's guru. So anyway, she says, "Look, here's the story. I've been cursed. I'm not supposed to marry a Brahmin, so at least I got you. You're a Kshatriya." And he says, "All right." Meantime, so they go back to Shukracharya to sort of get approval for the betrothal. Shukracharya hears the story, and he gets super upset. My daughter was thrown in a well. He's not upset that she's going to marry a Yati, but he's angry at Vrishaparva and his daughter Sarmishta. So he goes to Vrishaparva in this fit of anger. Vrishaparva knows he's coming, and he wants to avoid a curse. So he gets down on his hands and knees and acts like the Bhagavatam says he acts like a menial servant. "Oh, Guru Maharaj." Do that if your Guru Maharaj is angry at you. So he gets down on his hands and knees. Guru Maharaj, whatever you want, Guru Maharaj. And he understands the only thing that will pacify Shukracharya is if he gives his daughter Sarmishta as a servant of Devyani when she goes to marry Yayati. Everybody follows the story so far. And so Sarmishta, this proud Kshatriya lady, has to become the servant of Devyani. I mean, it's quite a slap in the face for her. And, of course, there's all sorts of other girls that go along with the marriage, too. It's described in the Vedic culture when a very respectable, high-class lady would get married, all of her friends would go, too. And sometimes the king would have children by all of her friends. Interesting scenario. You may say, but won't that take away all these girls for people who want to get married? Well, in those days, a lot of people wanted to take sannyas, so it really wasn't a problem. Sometimes Prabhupada was asked the question, what if everyone takes sannyas? How will the human race go on? It's sort of like a ridiculous question that people would ask, because it's not going to happen. And even sometimes people do take sannyas and they just don't make it in the sannyas order. So anyway, Shukracharya also orders Vrishaparva and his daughter Sarmishta that you are not to have any sort of relationship with Yati, and he tells that to Yati too. Do not go to bed with this girl. So in other words, this poor girl, she's there and she can't have any children, and she's just like a servant of her friend. Well, I don't know if it's friend still, Devyani, acquaintance. So she's just like a servant. And so she sees that Devyani gets 2 children. And one child's name is Yadu. This is why it's important for this story. And the other one's Turvasu, I believe. Yeah. And so she becomes really upset. I can't have any children. What is this? And so she corners the king one day, King Yati, and says to him, whatever she says. Anyway, she says, "Hi." I don't know. these things. I'm a sannyas. I don't know about these things. So she basically seduces him or whatever it is, and they have a relationship, and she has 3 kids. I don't remember. I remember the name of one kid was Puru, but I don't remember the other 2 names. So she has 3 kids, and one time Devyani sees these kids, and she sees that Sarmishta has these kids, and she asks the kids of Sharmishta, she doesn't understand that they're from her husband. She thinks that maybe she had a relationship with someone else. Who's your father? And the kids look at the king and they say, Yati. And Sarmishta, Devyani is fit to be tied at that point, which means she's really angry. So what does she do? She says, I can't stand this. Yati's around at the same time. And she goes to run to her father to complain about all this. Meantime, as she's running to her father to complain about her husband, Yayati, is holding on to her feet trying to get her to go, trying to stop her from going. No, dear, don't, please forgive me. Oh, whatever you want, I'll give you. He's really henpecked, as we say. So he, basically, but she's still determined. She goes to her father. Husband's following behind her, completely in anxiety about what's going to happen to him. Shukracharya, her father, gets so upset. He says, you lusty dog. I curse you to have old age, to be an old person and be an impotent. And so, all of a sudden, he turns into this really, there's one curse. But that's not the curse that's referred to in this verse. There's other curses. So he turns into this old, shriveled up old man. And Devyani looks at him, and she says, how am I going to enjoy, Dad? What about me? You get me married to this old, shriveled up, creepy-looking guy, How am I going to have any enjoyment? And then he also says, but I have all these lusty desires, and now I don't have any instruments to fulfill those lusty desires. So Shukracharya, thinking of his daughter's happiness, says, okay, we can mitigate that curse in this particular way. You can go to one of your sons, and if your son is willing to exchange his youth for your old age, then go for it. So he goes around to his sons one by one, picks his oldest son first, and this is where we get to Yadu. And he says to Yadu, my dear oldest son, will you please exchange your youth for my old age? And he says, no, Dad. Oh. Now, in the old days, you don't want to disobey your father. It's not like America. I was talked to devotees from Indian culture quite a bit, and the father is just like, uh-oh. And the mother is, uh-oh, uh-oh. Double uh-oh. Like that, isn't it? So it's just like really disciplinarians. In the West is, a little bit different. So he says no to his father. Now, excuse me. So it's explained why he says no to his father. Several different reasons. 2 different reasons. He says, I actually want to work out my desires when I'm young too. I don't want to be stuck with an old body. But even more important is he wants to accelerate the appearance of Krishna, because he understands Krishna is going to appear in his dynasty. So, he doesn't want to get into these other things. So Yati basically says, curses him in the sense, you will not be the king, and your descendants will not be kings. So that's the curse that's referred to here. It's not that Yati was cursed, but that's not the curse that's being referred to. he gets very upset. So anyway, he goes to his sons, and basically they all refuse except for his younger son, Puru. And Puru agrees. And that's why Puru became the king later on. You understand? He was allowed to become the king. The other personalities were assigned different areas, but Puru was actually the emperor over whom all the other, subsidiary kings or whatever you may call them, worked at that particular point. So even though Puru, so that goes against the law of what we call primogeniture. Primogeniture means that the first son or the oldest son gets to be the king. So that goes against that rule. So basically, Puru it becomes the Puru dynasty. And at one particular point in the Mahabharata, we find that Arjuna is called like a descendant of Puru. And then that whole story of Puru was told at that particular point in the Mahabharata. So then Yayati, just continue with the story so we can finish with the story of Yayati. So for 1,000 years, he's enjoying with Devyani, so-called enjoying. Then after 1,000 years, he realized, what's up? After 1,000 years, he realizes this is not happiness, And he says to her, he doesn't say directly. Sometimes when we have to preach or speak to someone, we have to tell like a parable or a story because it would just like really upset them if we tell them the truth. So we have to tell them in an indirect way. He says, basically, once upon a time, there was a she-goat and a he-goat. And the he-goat found the she-goat in a well, and he dug the she-goat out of the well, and he had a relationship with another she-goat, and the she-goat's master, took off part of his body because the she-goat went to complain to her master. And in this way, he was explaining, my dear wife, you and I are like goats. I mean, this is Bhagavatam. Don't blame me. Without telling her, we're a bunch of goats here. Which would have been like insulting to her. But she got it. She got the point. And they both became very renounced and Krishna conscious, and they both went back to home, back to Godhead. So it has a happy ending to the story. So the main reason I told the stories, first of all, because it's interesting. And second of all, because it's the curse that was given to Yadu, and Yadu had so many descendants after that. And all these descendants are listed, maybe not all of them, but the main descendants are listed in the 9th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam when you go through the dynasty, all the way to Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Vasudeva and Krishna, who is Vasudev's son. So that's the story of the curse. Interesting story there. And so here Ugrasen is being asked to become the de facto king, not the de juris king. So he will rule the kingdom. And, of course, Krishna's motivation is, let me get out of here as soon as possible and get back to Braj. But that's not going to really work, as we heard yesterday, because these demons, actually in the the Brihad Bhagavatamrita too, and then also the Gopal Champu, it's mentioned that one of the reasons that Krishna had to stay in Mathura and later on in Dwarka was that Jarasandha, who was the father-in-law of Kamsa, and the father of all of Kamsa's wives, was really angry at Krishna, and he would have gone to Vrindavan to attack all the residents of Vrindavan. Not only did Krishna have to protect Mathura, but if he went to Vrindavan, it would have endangered everybody in Vrindavan. So therefore, Krishna ultimately had to, not that he had to, it was his pastimes, but from an external viewpoint, it appears that Krishna ultimately had to stay in Mathura and eventually go to Dwarka, even though his desire was to go to Vrindavan. So, any questions or comments about any of these points? About the story or any of it? Yeah. But they're descendants of Puru. Descendants of Puru. I mean, obviously they had some control of kingdoms, but they weren't technically kings. And that refers to all of the other sons of Yati. They were all cursed by Yati. So they might have been like de facto kings in one sense, but they never really took that position in an official way, as was explained yesterday by Rudrani, that really what was, just like you have in Europe right now, well, you have de jure kings who are not de facto kings. It's the opposite. For example, you have, the King of England, who has absolutely no power. So that's a de jure king without de facto, which is the opposite. He's technically the king, but he has no power as a king. So the opposite thing with the Yadus, they were had the power of the king, but not technically could not become the king. And as Rudrani explained yesterday, generally there was a board of like Congress or something like that who actually controlled everything. So, another point. There's another point I want to make before we take more questions, is that on Krishna's order, this is actually an extremely important point. On Krishna's order, by the desire of the Lord or by the performance of devotional service, curses can be negated. It's not that someone is subject to the curse necessarily. If one takes a devotional service, curses and bad planets and everything can be nullified. An example of this is given in the Bhagavatam. Once upon a time, here's another story, there was a disciple of Vashishta Muni, and his name was Prishrada. Yeah, I got the name right. Prishrada. Prishrada was given different duties by his guru. And one of the duties he was given by the guru was to take care, guard the cows at night, because tigers would come at that time to eat the cows. And so he had a sword in his hand, and it was dark. And a tiger came into where the cows were. And so he went to attack the tiger, but it was dark. So he sliced with his sword. And he cut off the ear of the tiger, but he also killed a cow by accident. It was by accident. So his Guru Maharaj got really angry with him. And Prabhupada said in the purport that this was passion. He should not have gotten angry at his guru, at the disciple, because it was an accident. It wasn't his fault. So the guru says to the disciple, I curse you to take birth as a Shudra in your next life. So here's a curse. So I'm just illustrating that when we have Krishna's mercy, we are not subject to the curses anymore. So this is a story that illustrates this. So I curse you to become a Shudra. And he thought, no, Guru Maharaj, I'm not going to become a Shudra in my next life. So he immediately became a brahmachari. He wasn't married, don't worry. And he just completely dedicated himself to chanting and hearing and going on book distribution. No, I added that one. And serving the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And as a result, he didn't become a Shudra in his next life. He went back to Godhead. So that gives us hope, isn't it? That gives us hope. And this story illustrates that hope, the story of Krishna saying to Ugrasena, you could now become the king, because it gives us hope no matter what curses, what bad influences, what bad stars, what bad astrology, or people don't like us, we can still achieve perfection and be happy in Krishna consciousness, whatever some skaras, bad some skaras we have. Okay, on that happy note, all glories to His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada.
Adipurusham Tamaham Vajami Angani Yasa Sakalen Priya Priti Manti Vasyanti Panti Kayanti Jiram Naganti Ananda Chinmaya Sadhu Jala Vigrasya Govindam Adipurusham Amaham Bhajami Govindam Adipurusham Amaham Bhajami Govindam Adipurusham Namaham Bhajami Govindam
Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Namako Vishnu Bhataya Krishna Prastaya Putale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Samaniti Namane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Prachane Nirvisesha Sunyavani Paschachante Satarane Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Jaya Dvaita Gadada Siva Sati Gauraki Brenda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadada Shiva Sade Gaurabhakta Vrinda Shri Advaita Gadada Shiva Sade Gaurabhakta Vrinda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadada Shiva Sade Gaurabhakta Vrinda Shri Advaita Gadada Shiva Sade Gaurabhakta Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare Hare, Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare Hare, Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. Rama, Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Jaya Jaya Gopala Jaya Jaya Radha Ramana Hare Govinda Jaya Jaya Govinda Jaya Jaya Gopala Jaya Jaya Radha Ramana Hare Govinda Jaya Jaya. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Haji Ram, Ram Ram Hare Hare. Jai Radha Lokinana Radhe. Radhe, Radhe. Radhe, 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 Jai Radhe, Jai Shri Radhe, Jai Om Vishnupad.
Jai.